Yeah, maybe.
Okay, we will call to order the meeting for the Shenandoah City Council held Wednesday, October 13th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Call the roll and notice that everybody is here tonight. We're going to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. We're going to face this way because somebody moved the flag on us. I appreciate Councilman Fletcher. Appreciate Councilman Fletcher letting us know that. I'm going to blame that on Chris. And then after we say the Pledge of Allegiance, if you'd like to stay standing, we'll say a quick invocation.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Dear Lord, we come before you tonight, and as always, we start off by saying thank you for your grace, your love, your forgiveness, for loving us perfectly, even though we're an imperfect people. We're going to make our way through this agenda tonight, and we appreciate your hand of wisdom on us as we try our best to make the best decisions that we can for the city of Shenandoah, whether we be council, staff, strategic partners, or residents. Pray these things in your son's name, and all God's people said, Amen. Okay, well, we will move right into item 5, which is Citizens Forum. And I did have one resident who asked to speak, and that is Ms. Esther Lum. If you will approach the podium and just state your name for the folks on YouTube. And as always, we hear your comments. You know we can't deliberate with you, but we do listen.
Yeah, Esther Lum, 31 South Emory Bend. There's a couple items on the agenda I want to comment on. First, I completely support the resolution on redistricting and note that our votes should not be diluted by Harris or any other county. But secondly, I want to comment on the American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA. I'm going to submit for the record an article published by the Texas Public Policy Foundation dated May 14th of this year, and it points out that ARPA comes with strings attached, and these strings jeopardize state sovereignty and our republic's future. This article states that the strings make it almost impossible to shrink the government. And if there was ever a time when we needed to shrink the government, it's now. Currently, Congress is considering about $5 trillion in new spending. This is in addition to the $30 trillion we already have in existing debt. And for perspective, maybe you guys know this, but maybe you don't. 1 million seconds in time is about 11 days. 1 trillion seconds in time is 32,000 years. Not 3,200 or 32,000. 32,000. So we only have 6,000 years of recorded human history. And when you put those two things together, you see how staggering this number really is. Not to mention 30 times, this is the existing debt. So I realize this is going to be an unpopular statement with some people, but I'm going to urge the council to reject this ARPA money as a matter of principle and to put the brakes on federal spending, which is completely out of control. Lastly, I want to say, when I met Mayor Wheeler a few years ago as candidate Wheeler, I asked him why he was running for office, and he showed me a picture of his kids. That should be the reason all of us do the things that we do, right? If we genuinely care about the next generation, we must do everything in our power to cut spending. And it can start with a very seemingly insignificant step like refusing this ARPA money. So I urge the Shenandoah City Council to summon the courage that's needed to hit the brakes on this runaway train of federal spending reject the ARPA money because this train, gentlemen, is headed for a cliff. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther.
Thank you, Esther.
Okay, well, that was the only person we had signed up, so obviously, you know, as always, we have a second citizens forum if you decide that you would like to sign up. We will move to item 6, which is council inquiry. Anybody have anything right now? No? Okay, well then, with that, we will move to item 7, which is discussion regarding American Rescue Plan Act funds. This is discussion only.
Mayor and Council, this is a follow-up to a discussion that we had about ARP funds, I believe, in May. The final number that we are receiving is going to be $740,000. We've already received the first tranche of $370,000, and the second payment will be made in August of 2022. Staff has reviewed some opportunities for these funds based on the allowances that's set forth in the agenda report itself. Staff has collectively decided that an AMI, an advanced metering infrastructure system, would be a good use of these funds. The city currently has an automatic meter reading system, which is an AMR system. We went to that system back in 2015. That system has been proven to not do what it needs to do to keep the city and our residents safe from high water usage and such. The advanced metering infrastructure system will be a real-time read system that the consumer can access at any time to see what their usage is to help prevent high bills from leaks, unknown water usage, and such items like that. It will also help the city keep track of water loss because the project entails doing a whole audit of all of our meters. And specifically commercial. A lot of our commercial meters are older. There's probably not 100% accuracy. They're probably trending lower than we would like. So this project will help correct a lot of that as well. The city has been in contact with Amoresco. There is a representative from them tonight, Chad Nobles. If there's any further questions about the actual system itself, the procedure going forward.
Does anybody have any discussion points that they would like to talk about?
What's the actual cost of the system?
So currently, we don't know the total cost. In order to get that cost, we'd have to do an audit on several meters, look to see where we're at, see what kind of system we want to go with. Amoresco is a third-party company that helps underneath Texas Code 302 to build you a system, basically. So you don't have to go up for RFP because you can build your system as is so that you're not putting an RFP out and missing some things. We went down that road, wasn't very good the first time. So this helps build a system that will be compatible with what we want, what's best for our residents and best for our consumer at the end of the day.
I guess that's probably one of the concerns that I have is that the system that we have is 6 years old. If I remember correctly, well, I wasn't on council then, but I do remember being, present during that time. If I'm not mistaken, this is the same thing that we were sold 6 years ago, that it would improve our water reading, improve our leakage, we would know better what's going on, it'd be real-time data. And then, I'm seeing now that that system wasn't even completed. Mm-hmm. So we spent all this money as a city.
We ended up switching over to the AMR system, which literally is just a reading, not a real-time system. So the AMI is supposed to be the real-time system.
AMR, they drive by.
AMR is just a drive, literally just a drive-by reading. If I'm correct.
Right, and I'll just
That's
add,
my question, though. How much more money are we going to spend on this? And what would it take to complete our existing system? I mean, I'm not opposed necessarily to doing it, but at the same time, it doesn't feel real comfortable for me to be spending all this money again 6 years later for a system that didn't work to begin with.
and I'll go ahead and hopefully answer some of this question. Very good question, very good concerns. Staff, as we discussed this, we had the exact same concerns, but with the AMR system, actually, so what happened, what was originally presented was an AMI system. But then that was cut back to just the drive-by AMR system. which at the time was old technology, but the reason it was cut back is for some cost savings. And then further cuts were made where originally there was a plan to replace a lot of our very old and inaccurate commercial meters, and not even that happened 100%. There were a few that got changed out, but a huge majority of those commercial meters that we have, larger meters, 6 inch, 4 inches, they're still in the ground, even after that project was complete. So it wasn't a complete project. Now, I don't want to just keep throwing mud on it. It did save on staff time, because prior to that, when we performed our meter reads, it was an all 2-day event of every Public Works staff member basically going out and manually reading those meters. So the drive-by did save a lot of time in that regard, because you could drive by and it'd collect most of your reads, except for about the 40 to 60 commercial meters that didn't get changed over to the system at that time.
And your commercial
So that
meters
never went away.
are the highest usage meters. We all know commercial
Right.
brings in the most revenue.
Is
So-
it not possible to change those over? I mean, could we go back now and change those over?
So those are some of the questions that we asked Amoresco, in particular, some of the ones we were able to change. Some of our highest one of our highest users is a hospital.
Right.
We were able to change over those 6-inch meters to a newer meter. That's something that they will look into. The hope is with a newer mag meter, which is what we got, it's very likely that those will be able to be changed over. But again, not until we really dig into the nuts and bolts of it. If we do go in that direction, will we get a firm answer?
Yeah, what I recollect was there was also concern from some residents about how secure that was gonna be. They didn't want anybody driving by and just being able to flip off their water, and so there were other concerns at the time as well.
There were. You're right.
Yes.
I'm not sure they were overly valid, but there were concerns. It's a pretty secure network from my understanding. I don't think you have to worry about that aspect of it.
Right.
But nonetheless, there were concerns.
You think about it, we're that many more years down the road and people are that much more secure in understanding how the data gets consumed and how it's transmitted and how secure it is.
I'd be more worried about
Yeah.
this than
Right, absolutely.
an AMI or AMR system.
I guess I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, cost. I don't want to look at, this is a slush fund and
Right.
just use it for whatever. I mean, I'm more concerned looking at it from a cost factor. What would it cost to build out our existing system, to put the 40 or 60 commercial meters that didn't get put on the system? What cost savings overall would we look at? Would that take care of part of the problem? If we're bleeding, it's important to stop the bleeding first, and then look at rectifying the whole system if need be. But if we stop the bleeding, then do we really need to spend
Yeah. I think
hundreds
that's
of
what we
thousands
did
of dollars on
the first
new
time.
meters?
$750,000.
Right.
So
Right.
from, with the current system, it's kind of a Frankenstein system at this point. We've had to piecemeal some things
It's
together
only
to make
6
it
years old.
work. Huh?
So it's only 6 years old?
They bought an old system, unfortunately,
Started
bought
as
an outdated
Frankenstein.
system.
Yeah,
For software, that's starting to get a little wild.
So it's been a project that we've been trying to make work for a while, and I think it's caused a lot of headaches, a lot of frustration, and we wanted to, this system is more consumer driven, so they can see real time what your usage is. It's based on antennas and it updates constantly. There's an app, mostly, we either go with an Encode app or we can go with another smart viewer app. They can see in real time, and they can set alerts. So if you're on vacation and all of a sudden you used 40,000 gallons in an hour, you're gonna get an alert and you're gonna know. It'll help on the
That would
billing.
actually be handy to know
Huh?
for one of my neighbors who had a toilet tank spontaneously break and was gone for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So my biggest problem with this, and I apologize to staff because normally I'm able to call and have these conversations ahead of time, but
No problem.
we're talking about things that are convenient and features that are neat, and yes, no doubt they'd be great to have, but we have real serious problems in areas in our ETJs that we've talked about. I'll bring up Tamina, for instance. It's just one area, right? that has serious infrastructure needs that we could use this money for. And originally, we had talked about using this money for those projects. I don't know where we got off the rails and went with this particular project instead. And again, I apologize. I know that we haven't had these conversations prior coming up to council, but I'm concerned that we're not using this money for its best purpose. We're using it for something that would be convenient for the city and might be helpful for the city. I don't disagree with that at all, but is this really, if we're going to, as Esther said earlier, if we're going to take $750,000 from the government to spend on something, are we really using it for its best case scenario?
So I think.
Are we doing the most good with it?
So staff, we try to think, what is something that could benefit residents and commercial? And this is something that we came up with because it could benefit each of them with water savings. And, a lot of stuff in the American Rescue Plan, especially when you're looking at some of the bullet points, there's a lot of gray area there. And we thought this was a very black and white issue, and we could go,
I like it. I think you're right.
benefits a lot.
I think it does benefit residents, and I appreciate that. I just wonder if there's other bigger concerns, infrastructure-wise. And that's what I think this money's for. I mean, this country, we all know, has some aging infrastructure that I think was finally realized that we need to do something about. Is there something else that we could actually address that would make a bigger impact for people than just the meter readers?
We've got
Just-
sewer
just a
projects
comment.
and we've
I was
got
gonna
major,
say,
you know,
or
we've got a lot of
CIP.
sewer projects that this could offset some of that. We've got drainage. We know we constantly need to improve drainage. And I think both of those are.
I don't know if drainage is, I mean, you might be able to, but it's not specifically called out.
But sewer and using,
Water and sewer.
Water and
Water and sewer
sewer,
are, yeah.
clear.
Yes, they're called out
clear cut,
specifically.
right?
And
So-
broadband.
And broadband.
That was gonna be my next question.
You scratch broadband off the list.
But water, but
We already had that project, yeah.
and we've got some water projects we know that we're paying for. So, I mean, there are some other things, but I'm leaning particularly towards the sewer projects that we know we've already got. We know stuff we have to be doing, and we're borrowing money,
Well-
maybe.
Do we have a handle on exactly what this money can and cannot be used for? Because at the TML conference, there seemed to be a lot of, not confusion, but uncertainty as to how that money would be used. Some of those expenses that some of these smaller towns or who had not applied for the funds or whatever, some of the uses that they proposed didn't seem like they were very, very appropriate. So I was wondering do we, as in Shenandoah, have a handle on how this money
Yeah.
is
So
be used?
I've been on several webinars. I've also talked to our TDM reps about this. They said this project was good. The only two things that you cannot use it for is to supplement a retirement fund or to offset a tax increase. But everything else, they give you these guidelines, but we all know with the federal government, sometimes it's not totally clear. And so that's why because we're a non-entitlement unit city, because we're below 50,000 population, TDM is who is overseeing our funds. So typically, that's who I reach out to if I have a question or if I want an explanation of, what do you think about this? And they usually give me a good ruling on it.
Have we reached out to Kevin Brady's office?
No.
I would recommend that we reach out to Kevin Brady's office because he has somebody in his office that will be very specific about these funds because I'm sure we're not the only city calling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
personally, I'd like to, I think it's a decent capital project. I'd like to see it juxtaposed to other capital projects.
Right.
And what we could do.
Well, and definitely cost-wise, I'd like to see a comparison of cost of our existing system and bringing our existing system up to speed in comparison to reinvesting everything into a new system. I mean, if we're bleeding water out of meters right now, then we need to stop the bleeding to begin with.
Right. I made a note to get that because that is a very good comparison. I look at it as, we've got old commercial meters. What are we going to have to spend anyway if we want to get those so that they're not producing the amount of loss that we're seeing?
Well, and just to put another point out there is that this project was brought to you instead of other projects on the CIP plan, because those are already projected for funding based on years. So this was kind of one of those projects that wasn't on the list. The other ones are all, we raised water rates to basically make a pro forma of our capital projects and
That's fair.
how the revenue would work. So this was one of those ones that would be very useful, and it wasn't on the CIP plan, so we were like, well, this money could be used to turn back into a water sewer project, so we don't have to put it on there and possibly look at raising rates down the road.
I'm not saying it's a bad project, I'm just saying I have a lot
Yeah,
of
just
questions.
the mindset
I
of
mean,
staff.
do I want to, is that something that I think would be truly beneficial for our city
Mm-hmm.
overall, in utilizing these funds?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware, and maybe other councilmen were, but I wasn't aware that our existing AMR system, I wasn't aware that it was incomplete, and I wasn't aware that, and that's not on y'all, obviously I wasn't on council then, so I probably, like most citizens, thought that this was something already taken care of.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of, dumbfounded that we have an incomplete system, and why do we have an incomplete system? We had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to get the meters to begin with, and, if previous administration was that incompetent, I just don't understand, how that works. So again, I'm not saying that I'm not for this type of a project. I just have a lot more questions that I think we need answers for, and I think our residents do too. And I know, moving forward, obviously as of October 1st, we have impact fees for any new commercial building that comes into play, or development, or anything of that nature, even residential development, if they're tapping into our water system. So I would hope that they all would be given the appropriate meters, because that's what they're paying for. So I would hope that would be the case moving forward.
Yes, the new businesses get
Yeah.
brand new meters.
Joseph and Jackie have done a very good job of getting that all.
Oh, I have no doubt, like I say, I have no doubt on our existing
Yeah.
staff and team that those things are taken care of by any means. But like I say, I'm a little dumbfounded tonight, that thinking that here we had spent all this money years ago, that we had a complete system, and we don't.
Well, and I think, as Joseph mentioned, and of course, this project was before all of us.
Yep.
But if the goal was cost savings, then that may have been driving the loose ends that haven't been taken care of.
Yeah, and to that being said, but Kathy just said, if it was a Band-Aid to fix a problem that we had, we missed it. We missed the whole thing, so.
Yeah.
I'd rather go out for a GO and fix it, but I don't like dead either, but.
Right.
Okay.
So, sorry.
No, you're fine. We actually have been in contact with Congressman Brady's office, as well as some others. And I know one of the options we had explored was using this money for infrastructure for water and sewer down Tamina Road. I'd personally like to circle back and look at that some more, as opposed to, not that this isn't a good project, not that I don't understand all the reasons for it, but I think the ability to address some infrastructure needs, not only within the city limits, but a commercial corridor in our ETJ, which will be in our future city limits, and then give us the ability to connect to residential properties in our ETJ that are in desperate need of water and sewer. I think makes a lot of sense if we're going to use this money. So I'd like to explore that some more.
Okay. Yeah, and this item is just a discussion only, just to kind of get feedback, some ideas. And the original deadline was the end of October, but they've extended to April now to have our first report in.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because it took the state very long to get cities their money. So a lot of cities were waiting, and we didn't know final numbers until August. So a lot of cities are still trying to work through what to do with these funds. So
And what's the deadline on usage? Is it December 2023?
24.
24.
Would
But
council?
this first tranche, don't we have to have
Excuse me.
something? Don't we have to have the spending started by 2023?
Yes, you have to have a plan produced by April 2022, and then you have to have it committed, like,
By
yeah.
By 24,
Okay.
right?
It has to be all spent out by 2024, I believe, but it has to be committed by 2023.
If we could then, I don't want to say that the old system was a total failure. I know that we saved a lot of money by not having people do that manually. So if I could get some figures on approximately how much we saved with the current system, and then a projection about how much more we're going to save with the new system.
You were going to say something, Kathy?
Actually, that was going to be part of my next question, is if you all wanted us to bring back some more details on this system, just so you have all the information.
I absolutely would, yes.
Well, Chad should come up here and introduce himself here, that's for sure.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. My name is Chad Nobles. I'm with Ambresco. You guys have a great discussion, and the questions you're asking are very valid. I've been working with cities just recently, well, actually not just recently, about 20 years. We're currently doing an AMI project here for all the tin muds in the woodlands. We're doing City of Conroe. We did Willis several years back. We're doing Friendswood, Seabrook. So I've been putting in AMI systems for many, many years with cities. I get these questions all the time. It's valid. I appreciate what you're doing. We don't make any meters, so we act as kind of a consultant. One of the things I think you've got to go down, and I tell customers all the time, the first question we get is, what's the cost? How's this going to benefit us? I will tell you that we can't tell you that because staff asked us that same question. I can give you a range of what we've done for other cities and how that all comes together. A lot of these projects, whether you use ARPA funds or some other type of funds, actually become budget neutral. So when you talk about, and that was one of the things that Joseph and I talked about, unfortunately, the past project you did, there were some things that weren't completed. And you did put in some older technology. What staff, I think, is trying to do is go figure out to kind of do a little bit, what we propose is kind of a process. You go in and you dive deep, you figure out what is actually needed, whether it's bringing back and updating the current system. Can we reuse a lot of the meters that you just put in 6 years ago? Possibility. We don't know until we go do the survey and find that out. We also have to look and test those meters that are in the ground. What we find a lot of times is those meters are inaccurate. In the case of a lot of cities, the accuracy loss that you have will actually, when you collect that, because you're paying for water, treating water and sending it to the resident, but you're not collecting the revenue that's on some of that meter. And it could be only 2 or 3%. And so that 2 or 3%, though, financially, as Lisa knows, adds up over time quite a bit. So regardless of how you fund the deal, I would encourage you to at least take a look at that first step, which is going and identifying what the real costs are being, whether it's upgrading what you currently have or completely replacing, and knowing what your current meters are doing. Because we did a project up north right now. City had 42,000 meters. They had a couple commercial meters that were reading 30%. They were losing 70% of the revenue through those commercial accounts. It's not always the case. A lot of times we find that the residential meters, we did some quick math on your stuff. We looked at some revenue numbers from your city, and I will tell you, you could have a 5% loss in this system, and if you did, it pays for the project over a 10 to 15 year period, no problem. You don't have to raise water rates, you don't have to raise taxes, you don't even have to use the ARPA funds to pay for it. It actually will pay for itself over that term. And there's different ways to go about the funding and stuff, so that's the big picture. I will tell you, like I said, we try to take a consultative approach to it. We want to work with you and your staff. We'll present you the data, you make a decision and try to decide what's the best way to go about it.
So is that assessment, is that something we need to pay for, or is that something that the manufacturer of the meters will pay for in hopes of getting the opportunity?
Yeah, so that doesn't happen. What we do is we typically, when she talked about 302, what we typically do for cities is we ask you to sign a project development agreement. We hope you never pay for it. right? The idea there is we will develop the project, we'll go out and get firm pricing on 1 or 2 or 3 different meter manufacturers, the installation, we pull the data, all the data integration, everything together, and we basically bring you back a firm, fixed, turnkey price. And at that point, you have a decision. You can say, yes, and you may have 2 options from what I've heard tonight. It may be upgrade the existing system or, look at a completely new overhaul of a new system. At that point, you either pay that, what we call a walkaway fee, or the fee to development, because we're going to go out and test the meters. We're going to do a bunch of, some engineering, some costing, some whole things of that nature. And we would, hopefully you never pay that, because what we want, where we make our money, people ask us, is in the construction. We're in the construction business of doing these projects. So we're going to put some skin in the game. We're going to go to develop this project, try to figure out what it looks like, and then bring you back the answers to all the questions that you're talking about. And so if you do decide to move forward with us on that construction part, then that project development basically gets torn up. You never pay for that. We just move into the construction period.
So what's a rough estimate for the project development?
So we've kind of given, for most of these cities that we're doing, to do a meter evaluation, we're looking at about $45,000. And that's a walkaway fee. But what we do with that is we're going to go randomly pull about 68 meters in town on the residential side. That gives us a 90% confidence factor of what your accuracy is. We're going to go buy brand new meters, put those meters in the ground. We take the other meters out. We send them to a third-party testing lab. They test them according to AWWA standards, so we get high, low, and medium flow rates on that. We then pull your database. We run all the calculations, build out the models. We also will get all the competitive bids. For all your large commercial meter that he was talking about, we physically send a body to survey every single one of those. So we're going to go look and see what those meters are. We'll probably do some large meter testing, meaning we spend time hooking up devices. If they've got test ports on them, we'll figure out what those meters are reading at that point, and we bring back that analysis to you. And again, we'll have multiple bids. We help staff try to go through the technology, because the technology's changed a lot. And so we'll help them pick different meter manufacturers, and look at different solutions and say, okay, staff says we like this one better, and then we'll go procure and get the best price, and then we bring that back to you. And that's the way we've done almost all of these cities around this area in Texas. It's very similar to like a preliminary engineering report that you would get, except we take it a step further and get that firm fixed price, because we'll go out and procure, try to get the best price we possibly can. And like I said, I'm buying hundreds of thousands of meters every single year. So it's just something to think about. Council told me they had this on there, and a lot of this discussion I know has been about ARPA, but I would encourage you to keep your eyes open and look at it, because I think there's not only benefits to your staff, but your citizens around. What I find is that citizens are looking for transparency, and they're looking for fairness. And an AMI system will give them that. You'll have the ability, like she said, she talked about some of the benefits of that, is the ability through a phone app, through the laptop, your desktop, you'll be able to see your usage, whether your sprinkler's running at night. Let's say you're on a vacation and you want to know, hey, I shouldn't be using water, and all of a sudden we spring a leak. Well, it would send you a text, and you'd be able to say, hey, I got a leak going on. You can send, either the city can go fix it. We've had cities that literally proactively go out and cut people's water off for them, because they, when the freeze came, that helped a lot of different times. So there's lots of benefits that, yeah, they're nice to have, but when you look at it from a conservation standpoint, it's big. If you knew your sprinkler was going off every morning at 2 o'clock and you didn't want your bill to, you were on a fixed income and you knew you didn't want your bill this, you could set a profile that says, hey, if I use more than this amount of water, I need to cut back, and it'll give you those alerts. Right now, you get one read a month. You don't know whether you got a $100 bill or whether you got a $10 bill. So there's lots of other benefits other than just staff operational efficiency, but there's also the benefit to the citizens to give that. And that's what, we have customers that just buy it purely off of that.
Okay, thanks for coming to visit us today,
Yeah,
Chad.
appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that, obviously it's something that, from public works standpoint, that we need to address. I'm just not necessarily sure I'm sold that it's an ARPA funding project for me. I think, we voted for public works, water and sewer in specific, to stand on its own. And I know that we've still had a lot of funding projects that we've done for water and sewer, and I know that our reserves are probably more than enough to take care of this project at this point. So again, I'm not opposed for us moving forward and talking more about this project. I'm just not sure it's going to have my vote for ARPA.
And when we get to, I know we have it slotted for that possible utility extension to be about 500,000 around, give or take, right now. There would still be some excess that we could look at using some partial funding, and then also looking at our operation, our O&M, and maybe somehow cost sharing between the fund and the leftover funds in this project, the ARP funds as well. So we'll have another discussion, and hopefully we'll have more information about the Tamina Utilities project. And we'll contact Kevin Brady's office as well to get some more clarification.
Yeah, I kind of like to echo the mayor's idea there as well. It's like it's an underserved community, might be really good use of that dollars right there.
I think that's the spirit of what these are for.
And
Just-
I'll do
thought
some
process.
analysis within our water sewer fund and see where we're at.
And I think on
Look
the
at
other
it.
side of that, that's our ETJ, that's our next growth area. And I think that's specific what these funds can be used for. So, yeah, it would be interesting to hear more about that.
We can also analyze our existing system and see if it can be improved or saved or for some period of time, just so you know.
Yeah.
It's just our first discussion.
That's right.
Yep.
Exactly. Okay, well, if nobody has anything else, we will then move to item 8, which is discussion and possible action to set meeting dates for November and December.
Council, this is an annual thing that we do as we get closer to the holidays. We have one meeting in November and one in December. We typically have gone with the regularly scheduled first meeting of the month. And those dates are shown here in your agenda report. Once or twice, I think council has selected a different date for whatever reason. So that's the purpose of this agenda item.
I make a motion to approve the dates as presented.
Second.
So I have a motion to approve. I have a second. Do we have any discussion?
I would like for us to consider what we did last year, and that's split the month. So rather than sticking on the second and the fourth Wednesday of the month, that we move to the third Wednesday of the month, which would be November 17th and December 15th. That would allow staff to kind of combine both meetings into one, and allow us, rather than missing 3 or 4 weeks, to have only, or I should say 4 to 6 weeks, and we would only have a 3-week interval in between each one before we come back to our January meeting. It's what we did last year. It seemed to work pretty well.
Well, December 8th is the anniversary of the first date for me and my wife, so I'd be okay with that.
With missing the 8th? Or making
No,
the meeting on
with
the
moving it from that.
Just clarifying.
Yeah. No, we did do that last year, you're right, and I thought that worked out well, having in the middle of the month. Is that, tell me how, from a staff perspective, because it's easy for us to say that, but from a staff perspective, what does that do for staff in terms of trying to get ready for meetings or whatever? I mean, is that a...
I mean, the schedule works for us. It actually builds in an additional week into the process, so that's always good.
I like that idea. I
Okay.
like moving it to the middle of the month that way. You don't go such a long period in between meetings.
Without having
Yeah.
What dates are we looking at then?
November 17th and December 15th.
18th,
Nobody's
15th,
planning
yeah.
to head out of town then early on the 17th?
Man, I wish.
Yeah. Well, no, because Thanksgiving's the following week.
Yeah. Thanksgiving's not till 25th of November.
Yeah.
And Christmas is on the 25th of December.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, now I'm looking at my calendar, so hold on. Is it 15?
So it'll be the 15th of December and November 17th.
Everybody's good with those?
I'm good with that.
Well, right now, we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah,
He
to revise. We're having the discussion part, so, okay.
It appears as though everybody is good with those dates, the 17th
I
and
have no
15th.
objections if you change it. So.
All right, so I will amend my motion to make the dates November 17th and December 15th.
I'll
Okay.
second that again.
So I have a motion by Councilman Raymaker, I have a second by Councilman Brought. Do we have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Okay, then we'll move to item 9, which is discussion and possible action to adopt the following resolution. A resolution designating the Courier as the official newspaper for the city of Shenandoah, Texas.
Council, this is another annual housekeeping item. We have to designate the official newspaper, and the Courier is the only daily. So it's really the only option for us, given our frequency of public notices that have to go out and so forth.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Brought.